All right, so thank you so much, speakers, for joining me on stage. Maybe to kickstart the discussion, I would like to start off with a key question. What to you makes the perfect public officer in this day and age? Dennis, maybe we can start with you. What are the specific skill sets that we're looking at, and what's crucial for public officers to acquire?
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Rachel, for throwing me the first difficult question. And first, I would like to thank Prof. Ang for that incredible framework, and I hope you can share the slides. As coming up on stage, I told Prof that I agree with him 100%. So first, a little bit background. I'm Dennis. I lead VITAL. VITAL is a shared services organization supporting more than 100 government agencies, ministries, and stat boards. We do your payroll, your finance, and all that. We're the chaps that are behind the scenes. When everything goes well, nobody knows. When something goes wrong, everybody blames us. So I think with that in context, especially in my organization, I fully agree with what Prof. Ang said. In terms of training, in terms of looking ahead for our people, it's really leadership at all levels. VITAL, V-I-T-A-L, our L means leadership at all levels. There's no perfect public servant. Today, the world is extremely complex. And when I came in, I realized that my officers were very used to doing things the same old, doing old systems, doing things in a waterfall manner, so everything resonated. Going forward, it's about teaching them to shift their mental models to be a lot more resilient, a lot more resilient to change. That's the first step. How do you live up the public service values of integrity, service, excellence, and yet be resilient? And that calls for a huge retooling exercise. That calls for a huge change in the mental models of how they think, how they work. And I sincerely believe right down to my most junior officer, and invite my junior officers, if I use civil service lingos at the MX14, MX13I level, every one of them can be leaders, right? Mental model shift at the leadership level, that means at the senior management level, every one of them can be leaders. And then how do we retool them, we reskill them, and teach them all the new wonderful technologies, which we can talk about later on, including the low-code, no-code ones. So maybe I stop there for now. Thank you, Rachel.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. I think I really agree with you there when you say there's no perfect public officer. So, yeah. Dennis, I actually see you nodding very rigorously. Would you like to add on?
Yeah, I would like to add on because I agree with everything they say. But I thought I'd contextualize it into my organization and my experience. So I started my career in the civil service in Inland Revenue, right? IRAS. I worked 16 years there, and I'm sure all of you think that IRAS is the best tax administration in the world, and it is, okay? Then I got posted around, and then I was sent to VITAL. Wow. So leadership and strategy, I think Dr. Ang's thing, right? When I first went in, people told me, why do you want to go to VITAL? You're going to run an army of backroom operations, transactional outfit. It's so different from where you came from. IRAS leading, VITAL is like not a very leading, like very behind. And basically, I received a lot of negative sentiments. But of course, I went, being a good civil servant, I'm a good soldier. And I realized one thing. My staff there were all inward looking. They were doing very well. When I asked, show me your KPIs and show me your outcomes and all that, very good. 99.99% accuracy, almost 100% no lapses. We had stabilized, okay? Those of you that know VITAL when we started in 2006, not very good, but give us 15 years, up till about last year when I took over. In terms of operations, we had stabilized. But what is the shift we needed to make? I think that was the important thing. What's the shift we needed to make? And the first thing I realized that none of them, my management team, had a really outward-looking orientation. The question I asked them is, look, when I came from IRAS, or I was in MHA for 3 years, the agencies there are always benchmarking themselves against the best in the world. I mean, we still need to do that to figure out what's happening out there, right? IRAS benchmarks itself against all the tax administrations in the world, and MHAs, police force, fire service, they always have all these benchmarks. I asked them, what are our benchmarks? And the shocking answer to me is, actually, we are quite different from everybody else. And anyway, most government agencies around the world don't have shared services, which is true. And therefore, we don't benchmark. I said, no, we need to look at the private sector. Every large MNC and company in the world has shared services. It's an industry norm. In fact, I met a shared services leader running a shared services that was 20,000 strong in staff strength, serving a corporation 500,000 strong. You tell me we cannot learn something from that kind of company? Of course we can. So fast forward a bit, the orientation looking out was that, wow, the role of shared services, transactional services, has changed over the years. It's no longer doing backroom. Back, to quote head civil service, backroom is no longer backwater. Today, shared services is an engine of transformation in every organization. Many thanks to the centralization of all this HR, finance, the data, and the new technologies that was talked about in the low-code realm. All right? So let me end off by talking about the new technologies and how it can empower the people. Right? So when I went in, we look at every staff officer on the ground and say, okay, you are just a transactional provider, you just do your work, you follow your SOPs. If you use that as a mental model, your staff will forever be so small, the role will forever be so small. With the new technologies, I ask my people, can our staff be a manager of bots? I cannot let my staff be a manager of many people, right? Because every organization is pyramidal. But can each and every staff be a master of RPA, data analytics, design thinking, and then manage 20 to 50 RPA bots? Right? This is MX14 and 13 staff. I'm not talking about leadership DD or whatever. No? Of course, everybody tell me cannot internally because we've never done it before. That's where we go outside to look at what the private sector are doing, and they have done it. So many private sector corporations out there have embraced low-code, have embraced RPA technologies, have embraced all the wonderful things in cloud that empower each and every staff to do incredible things. And I can share with you today, I have staff, at least a good 15 or 20 of them today, that after we've sent them for training, so I tie into what Prof. Ang said, how many of you have gone to school to learn about RPA, coding, learn about data analytics and all that? Very few, right? It's the same thing in Vital. I realized that at leadership level, we want to do all these wonderful things, but my staff need to be taught. So we have partnered with an IHL, not SUSS yet, maybe I should go and talk to Prof. Ang, but with an IHL, with a polytechnic, where I'm sending all my staff, back to school, right? The graduate level and above are going back to get a specialist diploma in data analytics. The lower level officers will first go for a certificate in data analytics, and some of these officers have only O-levels or IT as their highest qualification. We curate this program with the IHL, send them back in, and it blew me away. When I look at their course and all that, I show it to their supervisors. Have you learned all this before? The supervisors say, no, haven't. So it's a huge, in this day and age, I can share with all of you, it's very humbling. Even for me as a CE, it's very humbling. I send my staff go up, they come back, they show me all the bots they built. Wow, I can never imagine that they could do that because I can't do it. So I would end off here by saying that the opportunities out there to empower people, and Prof. Ang hit the nail on the head. There are only so few of us, right? Singapore government, right? We tend to hire, we can only hire Singaporeans, maybe PRs. There are so few of us. We need to think of all the ways to amplify and grow each and every staff, not just the leaders, right down to the most junior entry-level staff, and use and leverage all the technologies we can get our hands on, especially those on cloud, to amplify them and to unleash what I call this tsunami of productivity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Actually, that was such an inspiring example. So I would like to take us now to the Q&A section. We have some really interesting questions coming in. So maybe the first one by Xiao Jun. What are the strategies to motivate our public officers who are resistant to change? Dennis, would you like to take that? And maybe Josie later on. Feel free to add in. Yeah.
I can only share from the perspective of my organization. I think when I first took over, I was also very worried that I would face an organization that was resistant to change, resistant that you got to break down into various levels. I would say for us, COVID helped a lot, right? COVID helped a lot, and as well as a mega change in systems in government, right? Of those of you working in government will know that on the ministerial side of the house, we are changing or have changed to HRP. On the stat board side of the house, we are embarking on Workday. This was the burning platform for me and my management team to go and tell the entire organization that, look, you all better change, learn new things, get new ways of working, because otherwise you will be redundant. And it's a fact. I was blessed because at least I had a burning platform, right? It's something thrown on us as an organization, but we gave them the 100% complete assurance that we will train them, we'll walk the journey with them. Anyway, nobody knew how to use the new system anyway, so it's working together as a team to move forward. I think the question will be more difficult if you are already in an organization that is doing well or doing very well, right? And I think Prof. Ang will say, yesterday's solution to this problem, So for that, I think as a leader, then it's incumbent upon you to do what Prof. Ang has laid out in terms of public entrepreneurship. You need to go and figure out what's happening in the world and paint the picture to the whole organization that you don't want to change now, you'll be forced to change. The tsunami is coming, you better learn how to ride the wave early, right? And I'm sure you can find examples from anywhere. Look for inspiration in other industries, private sector, public sector. You will see change is coming. And then when you piece the picture together and put out the narrative is so important. Cascade it now, say it 7 times, say it 20 times, then people will move. And once you get enough momentum, that means tipping point, then you hear the conversations. As they say, you want to change the culture, change the conversations. Everybody starts to talking, what new skills I need to learn. We are introducing this new low-code technology. Have you learned it yet? Etc. That's how you get it going. So the short answer is, if you have a burning platform, use it, use a crisis, right? Always lock in the gains from a crisis. If you don't have a burning platform, better create one.
Thank you, Dennis. Maybe to wrap up this session as we're closing, what is one thing you'd like the audience to take away from this panel? Dennis, would you go first?
I think I'll write on what Dr. Ang mentioned about leadership. I think in this very uncertain world and complex world, that leadership is even more important than, say, when I started my public sector career 20 years ago. And the burden on leadership has changed, right? I would say lead with humility and give yourself permission to cry with your staff and to be vulnerable. I think somehow the Asian culture, at least the way I was brought up as a younger person, is the leader must be strong, must be like power distance, must always act like he knows or he or she knows everything. I think just to me, I throw that completely out the window. Everybody knows you're the leader. To me, everybody knows I'm the CE. And call me CE. But one day I won't be the CE anymore, right? So maybe you can call me Dennis instead. But we are here to work as a team. And as a leader, you do have a lot of burdens, right? You need to set the strategy for your organization or for your department, for your unit. And then you need to be there with your team to bring out the best in the people. So I conclude with focus on your people. If you get that right, if you unleash their productivity and unleash their ambition, you can do anything and everything. It's not so much about the outputs, right? The outcomes that you want, working through the people that you have. And there are only that many of us in Singapore, and Singapore is so small and a little red dot, right? As a public service, we really need to come together, put aside what the POHs are talking about, Forward Singapore, all that kind of thing, right? But we, regardless of political views, want Singapore to succeed. And it's so important that our public service must continue to remain exceptional so that we can, in Singapore, have a place in the world. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.